that was an amazing experience. I'm sad that it's over, but I'm also happy because we experienced it. I loved Lies of P leading up to the DLC. Like, when I had initially played it, I loved it. It's very Bloodborne. I think the aesthetics are really well executed. The soundtrack was always really great, but now that we have all these extra songs, I think it's phenomenal. Like, just this experience all around is so good. I'm only going to review the DLC right now. When we finish the full game in another stream, I will give my full thoughts with like the way that this is pieced in with the main story and stuff. But this was just really great all around. I thought they did a banger job with the DLC. Every area was really cool and unique. Everything felt very intentional. The story filled in a lot of gaps from the base game that I think that we all had. It added a lot more context, and there was nothing in this that I disliked. So let's just give it a go. Graphics, fantastic. I initially played this on my Xbox Series X, and the game did look good then. On PC with the maximum graphics, it looked fantastic. The only thing that I will mention that goes into graphics and also bugs is that there is an unfortunate issue that a lot of people experienced with the DLC coming out, that the game flashes. It's got like flashes and kind of like visual problems. It did not take away from the experience. It got a little bit annoying, but it wasn't the worst thing ever. They have addressed it and said that they're trying to fix it, so I'm hoping in the future they will get around to actually doing that, because it definitely was a little bit annoying, but it didn't take away from the experience. So I'm just gonna still go fantastic, because visually this game is stunning. The aesthetic is so amazing. The aesthetic in a lot of ways does feel similar to something like Expedition 33, and I think that after playing E33 and playing this so close to each other, the ways that they are so similar is honestly kind of mind-blowing. So much of the soundtracks from both games sound similar. A lot of the aesthetics, because it's like the French aesthetic, are similar. And you have like this big family dynamic in both, with like Mael and Verso, and it's so cool that both the games are similar in so many ways. But of course, they're very different experiences all around. The aesthetic for this game is amazing, very immersive, perfectly executed, and I feel even stronger about it after the DLC, because sometimes DLCs can just feel crammed in. Because this is not at the end, it's not a prequel or a follow-up, it's in the middle of the DLC, similar to Shadow of the Erdtree. It could have very easily felt very like brute forced in, and it does not. I thought that it was perfectly placed, and the aesthetic and the different areas they went with, like the zoo was really cool, even the cave was pretty decent. So I love the art style. Yeah, I think that the environments, the outfits, items, everything is perfectly executed. The music is fantastic. I still think that this soundtrack is slightly weaker than Expedition 33, but in terms of my favorite games, we are talking about very small differences here. So Stellar Blade is an 8.5. It was, when it was just the base game, a 9. I'm going up in that score a little bit after playing it. My final impressions for this game, honestly, is probably like a 9.3. So it's a little bit higher. It's pretty close to perfect. Expedition 33 is just slightly better. And the, of course, top game in my opinion is still Elden Ring. But this was definitely amazing. Music's fantastic. I still think that Clair Obscur Expedition 33's soundtrack is slightly better. I feel like there are a lot more vocals in Clair Obscur's that tell more of a story. So the soundtrack, if you haven't played the game and you're just listening to the soundtrack, you get a story just from that. Yeah, sure, it's in French, but still. So I'm going fantastic, though it's a couple notches lower. Difficulty, so the DLC itself is pretty fucking tough. If you are not using the summon, you would be here forever. I personally wouldn't play this without the summon, for especially that final boss. That was crazy. I didn't feel like any of the bosses in the DLC were too tough, except for the final one. But even then, I don't necessarily think that he was so insane with the summon that it would have made me rage quit. I think that solo, though, I'd be crying. That's my truth. So, yeah, I would say it's, in terms of Souls experiences, I don't think that this is the toughest, but I think that with the system, like the weapons, where you have the handle and the blades that are different, that can be a little bit tough to navigate. Also, upgrading your P organ can be a bit complicated at times, like you kind of lose track of where you are. But the difficulty, I'm going to say, is average. I was playing on the highest that was available for a first playthrough, which is cool. Yeah, the bosses are tough, but fair. I think that last one might border on unfair, but, well, for solo, but I did not play it that way. Bugs. The only bugs that I really encountered were the screen flickering, and I'm not necessarily saying that this is a bug, but there were a lot of problems, and this happens in a lot of games, right? Where, like, enemies can hit you through walls, but your weapon bounces off of walls, and I feel like that could have been a little bit better. That could have been executed a little bit better, but it didn't, again, like, ruin the experience at all whatsoever. Ah, yes, the highest difficulty, normal, yeah. If they had unlocked the harder difficulty initially, I think a lot more people would have been happy with that decision, but they added easy difficulties instead. I'm just gonna go few bugs because of those minor problems, though not bad. Fantastic story. It filled in so many gaps from the base game. It answered so many questions. Like, it gave so much more context. Oh, I loved the flow of the characters, and yeah, there were times where, like, Asterian Light's character, I instantly had a bad feeling about him. But it also gives you so much more, in my opinion, like, hatred for Geppetto. Ooh. I know that there's, like, this fan base online that's kind of divided because there's some people who like him and feel like they can almost understand him, but I disagree. I absolutely fucking hated him. At the end, he took Romeo, who I guess wasn't technically dead, but he was almost dead, and he infected him, right, with the petrification disease, yeah? Because later on, he becomes king of the puppets. So, that is insane context. Also, Alidoro's story, there were a lot of nice little storylines, and I felt like that was, I felt like that was really good. I'm gonna go fantastic. Gameplay, challenging, yet amazing. I love Lies of P's combat. I think that it is really good. It's the closest game we're ever going to get to Bloodborne again, which kind of breaks my heart, but I thought they did a really phenomenal job. The weapons that they added in the DLC were really cool, and I don't really have any other context to give or, like, commentary to give about the gameplay, except for it's really awesome. Quality of life, I felt like the areas were a little bit more kind of compact, and it was pretty linear. Like, the base game is pretty linear itself. There are a couple of, like, branching paths, but I didn't feel like you needed a mini map or, like, a compass or anything like that. Quality of life, I'm just gonna go perfect. I didn't have any major problems with it. How responsive were the controls? Really responsive. I didn't have any major issues. The only thing that I will say about, I guess, like, controls and maybe quality of life as well, is this is something I complained about in the base game, something I'll complain about now. It takes forever to use a potion. It feels like forever. And I know, right? There's a fine line between, oh, it's just a snap of the finger and your health is instantly regenerated and there's no animation. This animation and regeneration seems slightly too long. but clearly it didn't ruin the experience, so I'll go standard. Game time / length. Now, this is only for the DLC. 22 hours, perhaps? Right around there. Because I know that the first stream of it, we had a little bit to do before that. So I'm going to go average. And keep in mind, this is a DLC, and I did not do everything. There's plenty of other stuff and plenty of other, like, little quests that I could have done along the way that definitely would have made the game time longer. I just always just play the way that I play. I don't try to go out of my way to do every little thing on my first playthrough of something. So I'm going to go average. Price quality, absolutely worth it. This base game often goes on sale for $30, which the DLC itself is $30. Again, this is just a review for Overture. It is definitely worth the $30 for the DLC. It is definitely worth the $60 for the full bundle. That was definitely worth the price. And replayability, I don't see unlimited replayability, but with the different weapon combinations and the different ways you could play, I could see myself going through this game a couple more times. I had only ever gone through it once. This is my second playthrough, and we'll be finishing the second playthrough in a future stream. Definitely worth a couple playthroughs. And the Overture DLC itself was a near perfect DLC in my opinion. My only major complaint is that it wasn't longer. And I know that, again, like, I could have gone through it much slower and done every little thing, but I'm talking about, like, main bosses and main areas. I loved it. I thought it was amazing. It's so much content for the price. It is so well executed. It adds so much to the story. And this is one of the best DLCs I've played. It's ranked up there with Shadow of the Erdtree, in my opinion. We're getting into, like, Witcher 3 territory. I'm going to give the DLC itself a 9. And I genuinely believe that when I finish the game in another stream, combined with Overture in the entire experience, my game score's probably going to be like a 9.5. It's right there with Expedition 33. It's right there with Elden Ring. One of the best DLCs that I've played. There's a lot of flexibility with the weapons. Olympic medalist runner Vara wishes the game was longer. I want more main boss fights. I want more meat and potatoes, more areas, but they did a really good job, and I cannot wait to see what they do next, whether it is with Lies of P and it's some sort of sequel, or it's a game after this. Either way, they have secured me as a big fan. You don't often get such polished and fleshed out DLCs. It didn't feel like it was crammed. It didn't feel that it was forced. It didn't feel awkward. They did a really good job, and those are my thoughts, guys. So my final score for Overture is a 9 out of 10. They did a phenomenal job, and I can't wait to see what they create next. So yes, I will be probably in the next week or two finishing up Lies of P, the base game. We might only have one more stream of it, maybe two. I think probably one long stream. And I thought Overture was really great. So yeah, if you guys have any last minute questions, feel free to leave them in chat. But I appreciate you all being here.